The countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it.
Countries dependent on oil from the Strait of Hormuz must now protect and safeguard that oil themselves. We are no longer a police force footing someone else's bill. These statements are the clearest evidence that, as of April 2, 2026, the very foundation of the global security architecture has been shaken. This pragmatic and hardline wave emanating from Washington immediately found its echo across the ocean in London.
President Trump has said this morning that he's considering pulling the US out of NATO.
Following Trump's veiled ultimatums about withdrawing from NATO, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer made one of the boldest moves in diplomatic history. He brought together a massive coalition of 35 nations in London to forcibly open the Strait of Hormuz. Today, we examine the silent threat lurking in the depths of the Strait of Hormuz, the Sky Sabre air defense systems quietly deployed by the UK, and how 35 nations have transformed Iran's strategic blockade into a hunt in a cage. The course of the war is now determined not just by missiles, but by the technological will of this newly formed autonomous alliance. Let's begin. The current state of the 2026 Iran war marks a complete turning point in military strategy. Although President Trump claimed in his address to the American people that the war was nearly over, he actually ignited the fuse of the real plan on the table. He promised that extremely harsh strikes would be delivered to the region in the coming weeks. This is not a deadline given to the enemy, but an order to act given to allies. However, there is a difference this time. Trump clearly stated that the U.S. military would not bear this global burden alone.
You know, we don't use the Strait. Europe needs it, Korea, Japan, China, a lot of other people, so they'll have to get involved a little bit on that one.
And that countries dependent on the energy flow through the Strait of Hormuz, primarily Japan, South Korea, and European nations, must be an integral part of this operation.
Grab it and cherish it.
Trump's statement that those who use Hormuz oil must grab it and cherish it is a direct reflection of the America First vision in U.S. foreign policy applied to military operations. The most striking point for us analysts here is why this new coalition was not established under the NATO umbrella. Trump's threat to not protect allies who don't put their hands in the fire in the Strait of Hormuz, using a potential withdrawal from NATO as leverage, forced the UK to quickly devise a Plan B. Although Prime Minister Starmer initially stated, "This is not our war," Trump's pressure and the need to protect Gulf allies, UAE, Qatar, pushed London into the role of host and leader of this massive 35-nation organization. This is a coalition stripped of NATO's cumbersome bureaucracy, entirely Hormuz-focused. Contrary to popular belief, the UK's role in this conflict is not limited to diplomatic meetings. It is highly kinetic, technological, and lethal. The latest data leaked from the UK Ministry of Defence confirms that the British Armed Forces have secretly deployed Sky Sabre air defense units to the region. These systems are considered among the most advanced shields in modern military history, featuring state-of-the-art data integration. It's not just Sky Sabre. London has activated the AUKUS and Rapid Sentry systems to counter asymmetric threats in the Strait of Hormuz, specifically swarms of drones attempting to blind radar networks. Reports indicate that during covert operations conducted throughout the night, numerous drones allegedly of Iranian origin were silently shot down by these systems. This is the most concrete and costly step the UK has taken to protect its Gulf allies, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, in the region. The real goldmine of information here is why the UK activated these systems specifically just before the 35-nation summit. The Starmer administration is attempting to bolster its bargaining power at the table by demonstrating its technological superiority on the ground, in response to Trump's declaration that he doesn't want passive allies. By taking on the surgical strike component of the large-scale operation led by the US and Israel, specifically the operations involving autonomous systems and the air defense shield, the UK is effectively proving itself to be a security provider. For London, this war is like walking on tiptoes through a legal minefield. Prime Minister Starmer is, on the one hand, providing logistical support for Trump's radical military plans, while on the other hand, trying to preserve the legitimacy of this intervention under international law. However, the reality on the ground is far clearer and harsher. The United Kingdom has quietly given the green light for the use of British-controlled bases, Akrotiri in Cyprus and Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, to allow American strategic bombers to strike critical targets in the Strait of Hormuz. So, how is the British leader making this sensitive decision? According to analyses by the New York Times, Starmer has established an extremely strict oversight mechanism regarding which targets American aircraft can attack. Every flight is meticulously scrutinized by international law experts and military staff at headquarters in London. Although Starmer faces criticism for making a slow start and lagging behind Trump, he is actually trying to prevent the UK from becoming anonymous in the war. This situation also highlights the scale of the UK's role in the 2026 Iran war. Britain is not merely a supporter, but has become the hub of operational approval. If American aircraft take off from British soil, this confirms London's status as the operation's silent partner. Britain's complex and centuries-old diplomatic relations with Iran have reached their darkest point alongside this war. Now let's turn to the massive military dynamic that 35 nations are truly targeting. The crisis in the Strait of Hormuz is not merely about the passage of ships. It is a shackle on the global energy system. This UK-led coalition has put forward a plan to physically clear the minefields and coastal defense batteries in the strait. This is a breach operation doctrine. We are now moving beyond mere defense to the stage of forcibly seizing control of the strait. While debates over the legality of the UK's intervention continue in Parliament, the Starmer government is clinging to arguments of self-defense and protecting global trade. The UK's approach to joining this war aligns directly with Trump's vision, but also incorporates Europe's quiet yet effective autonomous power. London's use of force against Iran means walking a very fine line under international law. The primary logistical objective of the 35 nations in the Strait of Hormuz is to sweep the seabed and declare a safe corridor using autonomous systems. If this succeeds, Iran's biggest trump card, the threat to close the strait, will turn into a paper tiger. The shield established by the UK's Sky Sabre and Rapid Sentry systems provides an invisible umbrella for the autonomous ships and mine-hunting drones carrying out this clearance operation. Let's get to that detail that brings a smile to the analysis table, but strikes fear into the enemy. The UK isn't just firing missiles, it's striking with light. The Rapid Sentry systems the UK has secretly deployed to the region are, in fact, laser weapons operated by artificial intelligence. Spending billions on missiles against Iran's biggest trump card, its low-cost Shahed swarms, is economic suicide. This is where the UK steps in. Adhering to the perfect resource management doctrine, it vaporizes each drone in the air at an electricity cost of just a few dollars. The key feature of these systems is their connection to the AUKUS data network. AUKUS is a massive digital brain that aggregates radar data from all 35 countries in the region into a single pool and distinguishes friend from foe within seconds. Trump's pressure to protect your own oil actually forced allies to join this expensive and complex technological ecosystem. The United Kingdom is paralyzing Iran's asymmetric attack capabilities through a surgical operation by weaving these systems around the most sensitive energy facilities of strategic allies like Qatar and the UAE, creating a smokescreen. The true strategic gem here is this. Britain isn't telling its Gulf allies, "We're just protecting you." It's saying, "We're teaching you how to use this technology." This is a new security mentorship model that secures the West's enduring influence in the region. Paradoxically, Trump's threat to stop playing police has led allies to cling more tightly to British and European technology, paving the way not for logistical independence, but for a technological alliance. Let's delve into that deep water reality that most mainstream media has overlooked. The real threat in the Strait of Hormuz lies not in missiles above the water, but in the silent mines beneath the water and the tunnels along the coast. For years, Iran has been constructing massive tunnels along the rocky shoreline of the strait through the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. These tunnels allow fast attack boats and mine-laying vessels to infiltrate the strait undetected by radar. This is where the 35-nation coalition's breach operation comes into play. The UK, through its flagship Bay-class RFA Lime Bay deployed to the region, has released autonomous underwater vehicles, UUVs, into the depths of the strait. These drones are digital hunters designed to detect and destroy Iran's smart mines. Trump's call to take control of the Strait of Hormuz has made the UK the operational brain of this highly risky and technically demanding cleanup operation. Criticism was mounting in London over why Starmer initially moved so slowly. However, when viewed through the lens of strategic thinking, we see that this was not a delay, but a preparation phase. By turning Trump's NATO ultimatums into an opportunity, Starmer positioned the UK as an indispensable bridge between the US and Europe. The UK's involvement in the Iran conflict is not merely a military necessity, but the most rigorous implementation of London's Global Britain vision post-Brexit. The British government's hosting of 35 countries actually transformed Trump's "I'll make you pay" threat into a success of British leadership. While walking that famous fine line of international law, Starmer personally sewed the armor of legitimacy for the operation by securing the approval of 35 countries. This is a strategy that aligns perfectly with the founding logic of great coalitions in history. Trump's declaration that "we are not the police who foot the bill" is not merely a budgetary issue. It is the official announcement that the Pax Americana order, which has persisted since 1945, has come to an end. However, Trump's threat of withdrawal paradoxically pushed allies to organize more tightly and more quickly. Led by the UK, 35 countries are actually trying to fill the strategic vacuum that America has vacated, or threatened to vacate. The presence of Gulf nations like the UAE and Qatar, as well as major powers like Japan and Italy, within this coalition confirms that the Strait of Hormuz is not merely a Middle Eastern issue. Trump's statement, "Those who depend on Hormuz oil must stand up for it," has now materialized into a concrete military plan in London. By allowing the US to manage its heavy bombing capabilities from its own local bases, the UK is effectively paying the logistical cost of keeping America in the region. The most striking point of our analysis is this: the UK is sewing the legal and diplomatic cloak of legitimacy for the US's harsh campaign against Iran. Starmer's gathering of 35 countries in London sends a message to Trump. "Look, we're doing our part. You can continue to take off from our bases." Trump's famous line, "Those who depend on Hormuz oil must take ownership of it, grab it and cherish it,"
Who receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it. They can do it easily.
is not merely an economic warning. It is the new energy sovereignty law of the 21st century. As of April 2nd, 2026, we see that Asian giants like Japan and South Korea have, for the first time in their history, become such active participants in a coalition for a conflict in the Middle East. The fact that the UK, under Starmer's leadership, brought these countries together in London is a testament to how effective Trump's non-NATO pressure has been. So, how did the UK convince these countries? The answer is simple: logistical guarantee. Starmer transformed Trump's "I'll make you pay the bill" threat into a British guarantee. If 35 nations can establish an autonomous, safe corridor in the strait, this is not merely about the flow of oil. It means that Europe and Asia's umbilical dependence on American foreign policy becomes, to some extent, autonomous. However, this situation also carries a significant risk. To what extent is the UK's intervention in this war legally valid under international law? The most striking point of our analysis is this: by allowing the US to manage its heavy bombing capacity from its own local bases, the UK is effectively paying the logistical cost of keeping America in the region. Starmer's gathering of 35 countries in London sends a message to Trump. "Look, we're doing our part. You can keep taking off from our bases." This is an extremely sophisticated burden-sharing game taking place within the Western camp. While walking a legal tightrope, the UK is actually shaping the doctrine of future warfare, namely, the era of autonomous systems and multinational special coalitions. Dear viewers, to summarize, Britain's gathering of 35 nations for the 2026 Iran war is not merely a military alliance, but the first major security test of the post-Trump world. While London walks a legal tightrope, it is actually launching the doctrine of future warfare, that is, the era of autonomous systems, drone-killing lasers, and multinational private coalitions. The Strait of Hormuz is no longer just a waterway. It is the laboratory of the New World Order. So, what do you think? Will Trump's hardline strategy of passing the bill to allies save the Strait of Hormuz? Or will this 35-nation hybrid shield established by the UK secure global energy supplies? Has America truly stepped back from its policing role? Or is it simply forcing its allies to spend more?